Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us again. This is the Fall River Symphony Orchestra's 96th season. We've been around for a little bit. My name is Douglas McRae Daniels. I am the music director, and I am so honored to be here today with these amazing panelists, these amazing people. I'm the lucky one in this whole shot here. So we have a lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of music to listen to, and I do want to just briefly acknowledge a few things. Ashley Gordon, she's on our panel today, but she's been my partner doing this series since November. Thank you, Ashley, of Castle of Our Skins. We'll talk a little bit more about her in a little bit. We are broadcasting live from the Narrows here in Fall River. The Narrows has been a fantastic venue for us. We've all been affected by the virus, and they have helped us to evolve and to do this particularly wonderful series for you. So thank you, Narrows. And we have really three goals that we wanted to achieve in this season. First of all, we wanted to acknowledge composers of African descent and their contributions. And I think we've skimmed the surface, but we've brought some wonderful productions. I'm going to encourage you all to go back and listen and view some of these productions that are posted on YouTube or on the Fall River Symphony Orchestra website. So they are all there. So please go back and learn and just enjoy this wonderful music and discover these composers. We want to educate our audience, give them some sort of historical context from which this music was composed and performed. We've started in the Renaissance, Baroque, Classical, Romantic, and now we are in the contemporary era. A lot of people call it modern era, or we're going to refer to it as the contemporary, as we have two wonderful composers with us today, and we're going to explore their music along with the piece that I will be sharing with you. I was a little bit jealous. I had these great composers, and I wanted to share some of my music as well. And lastly, we want you to experience this music through live performances. So those are our three objectives here. And let me just introduce to you our panelists. A visual artist, filmmaker, composer, violist, a recontextualist. Renee Baker is a multi-disciplined engineer. She utilizes movement, film projections of real and imaginary objects, vignettes of sound to create an exquisite arena of surrealist activity. Baker is the founding director of the internationally renowned Chicago Modern Orchestra Project, a versatile orchestral ensemble that embraces all musical genres, including classical and jazz. She is also the visiting resident artist at the Chicago Symphony from 2017 to 2020. Renee, welcome. Thank you. And we have Dr. Adolphus Hailstork. He received his doctorate in composition from Michigan State University, where he was a student of H. Owen Reed. He completed earlier studies at the Manhattan School of Music under Vittorio Giovini and David Diamond, and the American Institute at Fontainebleau with Nadia Boulanger, and also Howard University with Mark Max. Dr. Hailstork's works have been performed by such prestigious ensembles as the Boston Symphony, Philadelphia Orchestra, Chicago Symphony, and the New York Philharmonic, under the batons of leading conductors such as James Dupree, Daniel Barenboim, Kurt Mazur, and Lauren Mazel. Welcome, Dr. Hailstork. We also have two advocates in this area. I wanted to bring in some other voices to share some perspectives. And we have them here. Chichi Nwanoku, I hope I'm saying that kind of right, enjoys an international life as a classical double bassist, professor of double bass at the Royal Academy of Music. She is the founder, artistic and executive director of the Chinike Foundation, whose mission is championing change and celebrating diversity in classical music. She broadcasts regularly for the BBC and Classical FM. She's featured on Desert Island Disc and the 2020 BBC documentary Being Beethoven. Awarded the OBE, and I just learned that OBE means the Officer of the British Empire. It's actually one of those royalty titles that we've talked about in previous episodes of this series. She was awarded that title in 2017 for her service of music. She won the Commonwealth Cultural Enterprise Award, Creative Industry Award, Top BBC Woman in Music, and made Honorary Doctor of Music at both Chichester and Open Universities. She is listed in the 2020 book of 100 Great Britons. Chi advocates the importance of music in everyone's lives. So thank you for joining us today, Chi. And of course, we have Ashley Gordon. Ashley is the co-founder, artistic and executive director, and a violist for Castle of Our Skins, which is based here in Boston. It's a concert and educational series dedicated to celebrating Black artistry through music. She is also a teaching artist at the Longe School of Music at Bard College, teaching a course on composers of the African diaspora, and co-faculty advising the school's first spirituals ensemble. Welcome, Ashley. So it's great to have you all here. Our format for this panel is going to be simple. We will give a prompt. I will throw this prompt to someone and ask them to respond. And we're just going to see what happens. Nice little conversation. But before we start our discussion, let's listen to some music. The first piece we're listening to is Second Threnody. It's performed by half of my trumpet section here at the Fall River Symphony Orchestra, Robbie LePage and Wayne LePage, father-son duo. And I'm going to ask Miss Baker to tell us just a little bit about this piece.
Okay, wait a minute. Am I unmuted? There we are. Most of us know the meaning behind the word threnody. So we're basically talking about bad things that happen. And so in crafting this duet, it's basically a round, but the two voices are expressing dismay, fear, disappointment about the things that man does to man. So it's a very, very simple idea. It's not built on the idea of trauma, but it celebrates man's resilience and his ability to overcome even some of the most heinous acts that man has done to man. So that's the basis.
Wow. Well, that is a very deep perspective, and I heard this piece, and I'm so excited to share it with our audience. So let's do that now. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to present this Second Threnody in its trumpet formation by Fall River Symphony Orchestra's members, Robbie LePage and Wayne LePage. Wow, that was an amazing piece. Thank you, Renee, for that. That was quite wonderful. I know my trumpet players really enjoyed working with you and playing that piece. So thank you. I would like for you to watch a video. Are you familiar with William Zick? He is the author of the blog Afro-Classical. And it is a wealth of knowledge. For our audience members who are not familiar with Mr. Zick, I encourage you to go to the Afro-Classical website and sign up for the newsletter. It is a wealth of knowledge. Explore that website. It is full, rich with lots of information on composers of African descent. We're going to play a video now, and we're going to start with you, Mr. Hailstork. Dr. Hailstork, I'm going to have you, I know, you actually were featured in this newsletter multiple times. But nevertheless, I'm going to ask you for your reaction to this video. Here's the video right now.
There's been a great injustice done here. As soon as I saw the portrait of St. George and I realized the aristocratic status he had achieved, and I heard the music and it sounded for all the world like Mozart or other people of that era, I actually was very angry. There is definitely a recurrent theme because Samuel Coleridge Taylor, with his musical, was a household name in both Europe and the United States and Canada. By the early 50s, you could hardly find his name anywhere. I saw the neglect of black composers in education and on radio and TV as a personal civil rights issue. Giving due recognition to the accomplishments of people of color, whether it's now or in the past. It's very much overdue. This has got to be shown to the world.
Society has recently become more aware of the hidden figures that help humankind reach out and touch the face of another world. Now it's time for a similar awakening in classical music, an artistic endeavor that has fostered countless flights of human emotion and has connected humanity across centuries.
There's been a great injustice done here. As soon as I saw the portrait of St. George and I realized the aristocratic status he had achieved, and I heard the music and it sounded for all the world like Mozart or other people of that era, I actually was very angry. There is definitely a recurrent theme because Samuel Coleridge Taylor, with his musical, was a household name in both Europe and the United States and Canada. By the early 50s, you could hardly find his name anywhere. I saw the neglect of black composers in education and on radio and TV as a personal civil rights issue.
Address this in a different way. Give me 1 second. Okay. I apologize for the technical issues, but I think we will be able to address it. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. Okay, can everyone see this?
Yes.
There's been a great injustice done here. As soon as I saw the portrait of St. George, and I realized the aristocratic status he had achieved, and I heard the music, and it sounded for all the world like Mozart or other people of that era, I actually was very angry. There is definitely a recurrent theme because Samuel Coleridge Taylor, with his musical, was a household name in both Europe and the United States and Canada. By the early 50s, you could hardly find his name anywhere. I saw the neglect of black composers in education and on radio and TV as a personal civil rights issue. Giving due recognition to the accomplishments of people of color, whether it's now or in the past, it's very much overdue. This has got to be shown to the world.
Society has recently become more aware of the hidden figures that help humankind reach out and touch the face of another world. Now it's time for a similar awakening in classical music, an artistic endeavor that has fostered countless flights of human emotion and has connected humanity across centuries. It's time to recognize the incredible classical music contributed by artists of African descent and the struggles those artists have had to endure. It's time to include this music and history much more widely in education, in symphony performances, and in publishers' recordings. It's time to build up the promising start that advocates and music lovers made in the first 20 years of this millennium to ensure that this music and these artists, past, present, and future, are hidden no more.
Okay. Dr. Hailstork,
Yes,
respond.
I agree. What else you got to say? I mean, having been in the business for 60 years, I can only say, yeah, it's good to see this happening. There was a momentary interest back in the 80s because they were getting ready to pass a law about Martin Luther King's birthday. And I realized then that it was an opportunity. I think, we've got to be opportunists. And I said, okay, if they're going to have a Martin, because I knew Dominique Renee Delerme, if anybody ever knew that name. And I knew that he was starting to scramble as the librarian at Indiana to find works by African-American composers to celebrate this holiday. And he couldn't find any. And he devoted the rest of his life to pursuing scholarship on African-American composers. So I was lucky to come along at that time and took advantage of the situation and wrote some pieces, or at least a piece or two, that could be used to open concerts or to honor Martin Luther King and take advantage of that situation. In other words, I was an opportunist. Now, that did not last. We composers thought, oh, wow, we're in, it's over. And now 20 years later, 30 years later, now we had to have another assassination before anyone paid attention. When Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, all of a sudden, all kinds of money came out of the woodwork to help people like me go get my doctorate. And now we have, and of course, there was this interest in the music of Black composers because of the celebration or the commemoration of Martin Luther King's life. And here we are years later, many, many years later, and the assassination of George Floyd is having the same impact. All of a sudden, people are saying, oh, do we have Black composers? What are we going to do about our scheduling? And can we get a Black audience in the hall, et cetera, so forth. And I've got some friends of mine who are skeptical that it's going to last. That stuff comes and goes in the classical art world, but music. And I'm hoping that this time, especially since we have such fervent, strong, active African-American composers coming up now, this is the best time I've ever seen for African-American composers en masse. I mean, just all over the place, getting performed in operas, getting performed and commissioned for song cycles and concert pieces, etc. And let's just hope this lasts. If they make a strong showing, if we all make a strong showing, which we could have anyway, then the opportunities are here, and we've just got to keep the fire to the feet of the entrepreneurs who run the opera companies, who run the orchestras, et cetera, et cetera. If we have any problem at all, it's the fact that we don't really own a lot of the big production agencies. We don't own the symphonies very well. We don't own the big ones. We don't own the opera companies, et cetera, et cetera. We don't even own the reviews. I mean, there aren't even that many Black serious reviews. And even, I guess just now, African-American musicology is going to start erupting, I hope. And young people will start saying, oh, let me write a paper on this guy or a paper on that composer, et cetera, et cetera. In my career, I'm talking about the last, let's say 40 or 50 years now, I've gotten a lot of doctoral dissertations written on pieces. You know, if you're around this long and you've produced this much, there are a lot of young people doing their doctorates who say, hey, I got stuff to work with. And they're boldly going to their advisors and saying, I want to do my dissertation on this series of works by Hailstork or this piece by so-and-so. And that's wonderful that they're helping to bring the name recognition to African-American composers. And this is very wonderful. Of course, the teaching is another whole thing. What goes on in the, students have to fight to get works by Blacks on their programs, you know. And, but that's because their teachers are brought up in a standard European system, and which we actually all of us love. I mean, God, I'll never put down the great white composers that I love also, but things are emerging. That's all I can say. I'm sorry it took so long, but you asked me and here I am. Okay.
And listen, thank you. I really appreciate that perspective, and I apologize. We're still working out a few of the technical details, but thank you very much for that. Ms. Baker, I'm going to ask you to just 2 minutes, do a little comment on that as well.
Okay, I'll try in 2 minutes.
You don't have to do that. I took more than that. You could have a lot of time.
It's okay. Look, I agree there's a bit of a resurgence going on now, but let's say in the case of Florence Price, okay, so they did, the years may be incorrect, but also you do a piece 85 years ago. Bringing it back 85 years later is not a revival. That was a dismissal. Now, had they brought her works back in, you know, in intervals during that time, maybe. My journey has been one that I wasn't going to wait for orchestras to embrace me. That's why I started my own. And as a result of that, getting more exposure led orchestras to getting my music. It really depends on what generation you're looking at this from, whether the glass is half full or half empty. I prefer the half full. And I just keep creating for different scenarios. I have been lucky in that I haven't had problems getting my operas produced. I have not had problems getting commissions, whether it's symphony or solo works, but I never established a drawer of music and decided, well, now all that stuff is going to sit in the drawer until someone hires me or pays me a commission. I just decided if I think the music is good enough to get out there, then put it out there myself. As for reviews, there is nothing stopping us from hiring writers, just like everybody else hires writers. There's nothing stopping us from building our own tables. We want to be at all the tables. We want inclusion, but I'm of the mindset, until you invite me to your table, I will eat at my own because I don't want to die of starvation. So that's just my take on it. There's a lot of us, but even inside the composition community, we discriminate against each other. Because if I'm not writing like you're writing, or if she's not writing like he's writing, we get dismissed. I'm one of those avant-garde, leaning to the left kind of composers, but I've also done symphonic works because I know there's got to be some accessibility there for audience ears. But I don't shy away from the right foot in classical and the left foot on the dark side. I just keep working.
Excellent. Thank you. Very nice. We're gonna listen to another piece. I see Dr. Hailstork was just holding up a copy of Miss Price, a CD. Actually, Dr. Hailstork, we're going to do the lento from your bassoon set. Will you talk about it a little bit?
Negro musicians. They have, I think, a yearly or a bi-yearly convention. And one year that I was there, a woman named Geneva Southall asked me, first of all, let me back up a little bit. They have the promotion of young people, and especially in the classical field, is wonderful. And they have an annual contest, and they specify genre. So one year it's going to be woodwind instruments, another year it's going to be pipe organ, another year it's going to be strings, etc. And for young people to participate. And they always insist that the young people have include in their audition program a work by an African-American composer. I've always found that very invigorating and stimulating. And this one year was woodwinds, I think. And Geneva Southall spoke to me and she said, Hailstork, we don't have anything for bassoon. We do all these, the woodwind, when we do the woodwind contest, bassoonists can't answer because, well, at least they can't find a piece by a Black composer. And do you happen to have one? I said, no, but I'd like you to write one. And so I went home and I wrote this little piece called Bassoon Set. And lo and behold, it's become, it hops off the shelves, my publisher says. And then I I also transcribed it for flute, changed the key and put in the flute register. And lo and behold, that's even selling hotter than the bassoon set. Now, I just did it because Geneva asked me to do it. And the, what is it? The third movement is a slow movement, which is everybody's favorite. And that's the one they like to cite. That happens for us composers, don't say Renee, all the time. Got people say, well, I love that movement, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the same thing happens with the piece you're going to hear now.
Thank you. It is a lovely movement, great piece. And, you know, I think it actually sounds good on trombone as well.
Really? I've never heard it on a trombone.
Yeah, I do. So we have our principal bassoonist, Bill Bedouin, performing it right now.
Great, great.
It's a lovely piece. Thank you, Bill. It's a great piece. Next topic. Chi-Chi, I'm going to throw this one to you. And then I'm going to ask Ashley to also respond. Even though the conversation has begun in earnest around diversifying our classical music workforce, is it genuine? Or is there just a certain amount of lip service? What do you say, Chi-Chi?
Well, so good question. Are we going to switch the screens? Certainly the work that I've started in Chineke is definitely not lip service, and I think everyone will account for that. We have been going now for 5.5 years, I had no idea whether our first concert would be our last concert, but it has grown from strength to strength, and we are playing in many major festivals and venues across Europe. I know that especially since the murder of George Floyd, which was definitely a catalyst for all the activity I'm beginning to see more of now around me, this demonstrates that this unfortunate, horrific incident was the catalyst for activity and more discussion. Although I do hear from some of my white colleagues in these completely white orchestras saying that they are concerned that the little sounds that people are making may just be lip service. But one of the things I've been very much encouraged by, because we just keep repeating and repeating and repeating repertoire that we believe in, that we believe should be heard in the out there, in live concerts, in recordings, etc. That now the Royal Scottish National Orchestra, the Scottish Chamber Orchestra, the London Symphony Orchestra, the BBC orchestras, the London Philharmonic Orchestra, they are all beginning to borrow our scores and parts. So they are now beginning to play because they realize we weren't just here for Christmas, we're here to stay. And everyone's looking at them thinking, well, what's wrong with your orchestra that you're still playing the same, how are you evolving with the times? And I think, our gesture it's not been a gesture, it's been like a movement of its own. And people are realizing that, we're getting enough attention, and then these other orchestras actually, they don't want to miss out. And so they're joining the party. And I know that one of the British orchestras is planning to play some of Adolphus's music this year. So bring that on.
I love that you said ours. I love that you said we're not just here for Christmas, or in our case, for the month of February, for Black History Month. Ashley, tell us some thoughts.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think to speak a little bit about what Adolphus had shared before in the 80s, and certainly to Renee's comment about dismissal, I think I've referenced before this collective amnesia. There's heightened awareness, which is fleeting, and then collective amnesia for decades, and then some sort of trigger, which was 2020, to sort of have some sort of revelation, even though certainly those on the panel, we have always known that we have 365 availability and things to offer. So I worry that this could be lip service if it's not done with a switch of a mindset and a recognition that this is very much us and the next 7, 8, 10 generations needing to have this mindset, so that we can counteract any sort of historical dip, since we do know that that has happened, and that ultimately it will if we don't have a longer vision. Then what are we programming right now? What are we programming the next season, the next 5 seasons? But really, how can we change our institutional mindset so that despite anyone's tenure, despite who is the ED, the AD, who is on the board chair, there is an institutional thread that is really baked into inclusion, embracing all sorts of cultural expressions and various abilities, etc. So I'm hopeful. I don't want to be naively hopeful. I wasn't quite around in the 80s to be conscious quite yet at the 80s to understand fully what the heightened awareness was, and then how that retreated in people's mindsets. But definitely do think if we understand the ultimate outcome, and maybe I've referenced this before in one of our episodes about equality versus equity, having the same possibility of being beloved, being part of people's consciousness, being who do you want to hear on our season replies on surveys. I want to hear Renee Baker and Adolphus Hailstork, in addition to Beethoven and Schumann. In order to get to that part, we have to recognize that we're not starting from equal entrance points, right? So in order to account for the fact that Beethoven gets performed in 2020 for his anniversary, but William Grant still doesn't for his 125th anniversary, which was also last year. We understand that we have different levels of awareness in public mind. And if we want the same outcome, we have to just increase. And that may be for the next 10, 15 years, not wiping away things that had happened for the past 400 years. But we need to take this moment in time to really be strategic about it. Otherwise, we will end up in this desert of collective amnesia.
Thank you for that. It's the intervals in between are way too long and way too frequent. We have another piece for you. Renee has been working with my principal clarinetist, Steve Toro, on this next piece. Renee, talk to us a little bit about it. You're muted, Renee.
I'm unmuted now. Pratigraha is about freedom from attachment. So, boy, this gets really deep because I'm not just talking about attachment to things. I'm talking about attachment to outcomes. When we experience attachment, we are not free to embrace the things that could be. So when we talk about pratigraha and the solo nature of the piece, again, this is one individual expressing his or her journey toward enlightenment. And this is kind of, no matter what your religion is, you are always, if you're smart, you're always seeking to become wiser. You're always seeking to know more. You're always thinking to increase your awareness of not just your nuclei, but the world in general. I had a great time working with your musicians, and I need a do-over on that trumpet piece because we couldn't hear it.
I know that there will be a recording.
Gotcha.
So thank you. They did a great job. But yes, I certainly get that. Great. Let's listen to it now.
I'm gonna scat. Do I do a dee dee da do without a hat? Do I dee? Imagine that. Do ba ba do ba dee do da ba do ba da do ba da da. And then I'm gonna play more clarinet. Shh, shh, but not yet. do ga da do dwee da dee dee da dee da do da dee dee do ba dee do ba dee do ba dee da do 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 da da dee dwee dee doo 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 dwee dee.
you for sharing that. Bravo, Steve. Thank you. As you may know, Ashley Gordon has, as I said previously, she has been my partner in this series, and I've asked her to take a moment to ask a few questions. So, Ashley, go for it.
Sure, yeah. Thank you again for having me this season. I very much enjoyed chatting about all sorts of historic African diasporic composers, so it's great to talk to living people. And I wanted to first ask Adolphus, I know you just had your 80th birthday, no signs of slowing down. If you can share a little bit of some future projects, future ongoing sort of upcoming projects that you may have that we can look forward to.
In June, they're going to the Harlem Chamber Players. I'm sorry, am I muted?
You're good, we can hear you.
Okay, I don't know what's going on. Okay. The Harlem Chamber Players commissioned a piece for the Tulsa massacre. And that's supposed to be done in June. They'll record it in June, and it'll be broadcast on Juneteenth, June 19th. And I'm looking forward to that. A mezzo soprano named Renee Bridges, who is highly respected. You can hear her on the tube. And what else is going on? Well, the next big thing is A Knee on the Neck, a cantata written by my friend Herb Martin. He sent me the text within a week after the murder and said, asked me if I'd set that. And it's been a year-long thing. And I'm sitting here right now during this conference, still sorting through the score and making sure what pages have to be redone, et cetera, et cetera. So it's been a year, and a year later, I'm about to put the finishing touches on that. And then after that, that's going to be premiered next March. And also a month before that, a symphony number 4 will be premiered in Louisville. And every time I say that, I got to say, take that, Mitch, because it's a series of essays, really. The first movement, so it's Still Holding On. And the second movement is Sometimes with a Light Touch. The third movement is While Remembering the Emmanuel 9 and many others. And the last movement is Still Crossing That Bridge. So it'll be premiered in Louisville, Kentucky. I said, how ironic. So that's some of the stuff that's going on in my life.
Lots to look forward to and keep on the radar. Renee, I wanted to ask you, you have been a personal and professional mentor for many, many years, and I've always enjoyed Russian tea room or wherever we go for hours of conversation. And as a violist, there's kinship. As a visual artist, there's kinship. Certainly as a entrepreneur, I wonder if you can share a little bit about your creative process. You're part of the AACM and have certainly a visual and highly creative, literally creating your own spaces. So can you talk a little bit about your creative process and the sort of adaptability that's inherent in that?
Yeah. Wow. Well, the visual art is a practice that I've had my whole life. However, as a violist, when you're in school, they say, stay in your lane. You want to be good at this one thing, then do that. So I had the privilege of being the principal violist in the Chicago Sinfonietta for almost 26 years. Done. Next, visual art. And then the film career came out of nowhere. So currently, I'm working on a box set with the film company Kino Lorber on a set of films. I think it's going to be a 4-disc set called Nasty Women in Silent Cinema. And I've worked with them before on other box sets, working with filmmakers all over who need paintings and framework for films all over the place. I'm still very active with curating silent film festivals, and I'm currently the director of the Zixa Film Festival on World Cinema. I am in next weekend, I'm filming for Chicago Fringe Opera, a scene for an opera that's going to be hitting the waves next month. Of course, I'm just finished the 3rd trilogy of the Baldwin Chronicles. So I'm shopping that, just like the first 2 iterations were snapped up by the Arts Club of Chicago, and then the Chicago Symphony got the second one. So the 3rd one, I'm not sure yet, but I've got another one in the hopper for the CSO African American Network, based on the jazz poetry of Langston Hughes. Film, painting, composition, it's one life. That's all. So I really haven't worked to segregate it, but having my orchestra ties all of it together. So I'm able to do my films, show my art, use it as part of the films or my sculpture, create the music, hire the musicians. It's just a life. It's just a life that, I crafted it because I ran into the same walls that a lot of people ran into. But I believe in going around, behind, under, over, because anything else would leave me bitter. And I see too much bitter in the world of composers. Too much woulda, couldas. If I had done, well, just do it now. Whatever it is, if you're able to compose, then you're a really smart person. So you're able to do lots of things. And so I chose to do everything that was in my skill set at the highest level that I could. I didn't know the film festivals and the movie companies and people would come a-calling, but they did. And I love the writing. I've been lucky enough. I've had symphonies commissioned and played by the Chicago Sinfonietta. The CSO has commissioned things from me. I'm a lucky girl. So it doesn't mean that there's not much still to do. There's tons to do, but the key is for us and the institutions to do it regularly so that the music that we write becomes a regular part of any orchestra's canon. Yep.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love hearing all of this, and I've heard bits and pieces of that story, and I love hearing it again. So thank you so much for sharing, and for your fearlessness. I appreciate that. Chi-Chi is another person I would say as being fearless and definitely making spaces where there weren't spaces before. And I wonder for you if you could share with our audiences listening today, certainly being in England and having Chineke Foundation, Chineke Orchestra, juniors, as well as 2, performing in all sorts of beautiful spaces. Very fortunate to have the opportunity to perform with you. Knowing that you also have come stateside, Castle of Erskine's had the fortune of working with you, definitely at Gateways and Sphinx. I wonder if you can share any uniquenesses that you see in sort of Europe versus the States, similarities as it relates to programming, as it relates to diversification, who is on stage, who is heard on stage, anything that you might be able to share from that sort of dual perspective.
Thank you, Ash. I didn't, there was a sort of blip on the sound when you said, I wonder if you can share any, and then I didn't hear.
Might have been my earrings, I'm sorry. all sorts of issues today, it sounds like, with technology. But if you could share any insights, having sort of a dual perspective on similarities, on differences, uniquenesses, as it relates to stateside and England.
Okay, well, I think we're all sort of, I think the USA and let me just turn off my other sounds going on. I think the USA and the UK are more aligned, but only because Chineke is around. We all think that USA are way ahead, and I'm currently in the throes of creating a Chineke Alliance for Audition Support, like the National Alliance for Audition Support in the USA, and bringing when we can afford it, occasional musicians and conductors from the USA. Certainly, a lot of our programming have included African-American composers. We've not got round to Renee Baker yet, and this is what we have to start looking at. So I'd love some suggestions from you. And this thing about, actually, Renee mentioned it, about the great canon. A lot of my my colleagues here, they talk about the great canon, and throughout my years as a schoolgirl and then going to college and then going into the industry in my career, I've been in the industry for about 38 years, okay? And I was at least halfway through my career before I even played a piece of music by a female composer. I didn't know they existed. Our education is so behind, and let alone Black composers. That didn't even, the first one that we ever played was Samuel Coleridge Taylor in the first Chineke concert, the ballad in A minor. None of us had ever played a piece of his music at all, ever. It's a disgrace, really. And I've been fortunate enough to present BBC radio programs and more recently Classic FM, which is an even more listened, it's got a greater audience base than the BBC Radio 3. BBC Radio 3 is the classical music channel on BBC Radio. Classic FM is a younger channel and it has double the listeners, which is amazing, but it's a very sort of classical pop music kind of thing. Every time you switch it on, there's usually the Vivaldi Four Seasons or the Lark Ascending or Elgar Cello Concerto. It's a lot of the pops. And they have a Hall of Fame, Classic FM Hall of Fame. It's the top 300 pieces of music that are voted for by the listeners. Now, I was asked to do a 6-part series for them last October, November. October is Black History Month in England, by the way. And so I said, well, I'm not sure, I'm the right person to ask to curate some radio programs, because my programming these days is quite a bit different to, and they said, well, that's exactly what we want you to do, why we want you to do these programs, Chichi, because we would like you to introduce to our listeners new music that we don't know, and even our presenters and the station, we would like some music that we're not familiar with. And so I said, do you mean music by Black composers? They said, yes. I said, you are allowed to say the word Black, And so I said, okay, I'm glad that we're on the same page. So I gave 6 programs, and of course I repeated composers, and they called me recently to say, Chichi, you've made history. Samuel Coleridge Taylor has now made it into the Classic FM Hall of Fame, first Black composer to get into the Hall of Fame. And it's what I say about how do we get our composers into the great canon? Because, as Adolphus was saying, we love our Beethoven, we love our Schubert, we love this music as well. Repetition, 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 repetition. It becomes familiar to the listeners, then they start to crave it and they feel comfortable and familiar with it. Repetition is how we're going to get ourselves canonized. And so I've just recorded my next 6 programs. I'm about to record. I've recorded 3 of my next 6. Renee, I might ask you to send me a couple of links. And I've got Adolphus back on it again, and Florence and William Grant Still and Dawson and Det and Coleridge Taylor and Avril Coleridge Taylor. There's some glorious music that we have been cheated from and deprived throughout our education. And we're just going to keep on reminding people of what they've got in store. I'm sorry, I probably haven't answered your question.
No, no, it's great. It sounds, I mean,
I think we're on the same path, really.
It sounds like it.
And one of the questions I had were about things like, because Chineke, where I'm interested in giving outstanding opportunities to play in fantastic orchestras on international concert platforms, because most of our people haven't had that opportunity. And we've got to just make that has to become the norm, not something unusual. It needs to be the norm to see people of all colors and backgrounds on that stage. It has had an instant effect on who comes to the concerts. Our audiences are completely diverse in age as well as ethnicity, and our staff and our board are the same. And I'm just excited to know that orchestras are now wanting to borrow our music. So something's changing.
Thank you. That is great to hear those wonderful questions, Ashley. Thank you, and also those responses. We are going to shift things just a little bit. We kind of got a little bit behind time with our technical issues, but we do want to hear some of this wonderful music that we have left. So, Dr. Hailstork, we have an adagio. I have a string quartet on the stage, ready for you to introduce this piece.
This adagio comes out of the first string quartet, boldly following Samuel Barber and what he did with his first string quartet. I thought it was pretty enough to try out there. And what happened is it started out as a choral piece. And I Am Only One. It's a text written by the person who wrote The Man Without a Country. I forgot who that was, but anyway. And the choral piece, I often do that. If I like a choral piece, which I write a lot of choral music, hint, Britain. So I decided to use that as a slow movement for this string quartet. Actually, it's the foundation movement, because that happens more than once. I'll take the slow movement and I'll extract the motives from it to get the other movements. And so this slow movement, I just turned into an adagio for strings, and that's it. Here it is.
Okay, this is the Fall River Symphony Orchestra Principal String Quartet. Wow, what a gorgeous piece. Yes. They did a wonderful job with that. Thank you, Dr. Hailstork. We actually are going to, we have two other pieces that we want to play today, and our time has just run out. So we're just going to skip to those pieces, and because we have a lot of hard work in preparing them, and so we'd like to present them to you. The first of which is actually a piece that I wrote. It is Reverend E.L. Knight. I wrote it a few years ago for solo tuba. It is a caricature of a preacher, a minister. Actually, he was, Reverend E.L. Knight was the minister at my church. I'm from rural Eufaula, Alabama, you know, deep country. And there's a particular rhythm that he would preach with, and I embedded into that some jazz and also some hymn music. It is probably my most well-known piece, I have a good friend of mine. He's the only member, or the only person that will be performing today who is not a member of the Fall River Symphony Orchestra. I've invited Joby Wilson to perform that piece. So here's Joby. Thank you, Joby. And as I said, we have one other piece. Dr. Hailstork, your variations for trumpet is up. You sound surprised. You're muted.
You know, what happened is I knew something told me you were going to do that piece. I was trying to go. And the thing is, I looked on my chronology to see when the heck I wrote it, and I can't find out anything. I think I wrote in the early 70s. And a young 70 or 1980. And as a young guy, who was a trumpet player, asked me to write him a piece. And it was my second commission in life, I think. I think I got $50 for it. and so I wrote this for him for his first recital. And the thing is, he was part of the group that I went with a choir to England in 1980. And he was part of that group. And so I wrote for that, and I incorporated, I think it's an English folk song in it. And we'll see if Chi-Chi can get it. And that's this piece. It's got some free writing in it in terms of rhythm, but it ends up kind of lively, and it's a fun ending.
It's an amazing piece, and we have Robbie LePage playing it, and he does a fantastic job. So this is it. This is the variations for trumpet.
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Robbie. Nicely done. Bravo. Dr. Hailstork, that was an amazing piece. 50 bucks, huh?
Hmm?
So $50 commission.
Yeah. Well, I had one earlier with that. Oh, I did for 20 bucks. I was just starting my career, my first teaching job. And so these one was a percussion piece. A guy gave me 20 bucks for that, and this one, the second one, was 50 bucks for that. So now the prices are slightly higher. That's okay. It's always fun. It's always a joy. I'm sure Renee agrees with that. That it's always a joy to write, and it's great if you can have your own orchestra. I'm jealous about that. But anyway,
it only takes money.
Oh yeah, right. Getting that, yeah.
Ask Chi-Chi.
Okay, yeah.
Well, listen, thank you all for being here. Chi-Chi, Renee, Ashley, and Adolphus. Thank you all for contributing to our 96th season here at the Fall River Symphony Orchestra. Also, our producers, the Narrows Center of the Arts here in Fall River. And of course, Ashley, thank you for being a great partner during this season with us. You guys have made this season great, and you've done such a favor to us by presenting your ideas, your thoughts, and your music. And we appreciate you continuing to do the work that you're doing and making those paths. Today is our time. This is our day, and we'll set that track for those who are coming after us. Thank you all. Thank you to our audience who has joined us, and we invite you to see our previous recorded presentations, and look out for what we're doing for next season. Thank you all. I bid you peace. Good
Oh,
day.
thank you for your chat, and Ashley, and everything what you said. Okay, take care, everybody. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you. Take care,
Bye.
everyone.
Sleep well.
Sleep well, Chi Chi.
Thank you. I'm going to bed now.
Bye, guys.
Thank you,
Take
teacher.
care. Bye,
Bye.
Renee.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ray.
Thank you, Ashley. Renee, thank
You're quite welcome.
Bye.